Max Verstappen just gave Formula One a warning that sounds impossible to ignore. If this continues, next year will be very long. And he will not stay. That is not a normal complaint. That is not a champion angry because Red Bull is struggling. That is Max Verstappen telling Formula One that the future may no longer be worth the mental cost. The problem is the 2027 engine direction. A 50-50 power split, half combustion, half electric. More energy management. More battery strategy. More systems between the driver and the raw feeling of control. But Verstappen's line is clear. Move towards 60-40, give more authority back to the driver, or risk losing the man who defined this era while he is still fast enough to win. And if Max walks away, the damage will not stop at Red Bull. It will hit the International Automobile Federation. It will split the paddock. It will shake the championship. And it will force every fan to ask the question Formula One fears most. Has the sport become so advanced that its greatest driver no longer wants to drive it? Because if Verstappen quits, it will not be because he was beaten. It will be because Formula One ignored the warning until the driver who made this era unforgettable chose the exit. Subscribe to the channel. At first, the paddock tried to translate Verstappen's warning into something simple. Red Bull is struggling. Max is frustrated. The car is not fast enough. Next year looks difficult. That is the safe version of the story. The version everyone understands. The version that allows Formula One to pretend this is just another competitive cycle, another top team under pressure, another champion learning what it feels like when the rivals finally close the gap. But that version misses the point. Because Verstappen did not only warn Red Bull, he warned Formula One. And the difference is massive. If Red Bull builds a difficult car, Red Bull can fix it. The engineers can search for balance. The factory can reduce weight. The team can bring upgrades. They can work on rear stability, straight-line speed, tire behavior, and the narrow operating window that has made the car so difficult to trust. Those are painful problems. But they are normal problems. Formula One teams live inside those problems every single day. What is not normal is Max Verstappen saying that if the direction continues, next year will be very long, and he will not stay. That is not just a performance complaint. That is a future complaint. And future complaints are much harder to solve. Because a driver can accept a bad season when he believes the next chapter is worth fighting for. He can accept a slow car if he believes the team understands the direction. He can accept being beaten if he still feels connected to the machine. But when the present is painful, and the future looks wrong, the question changes. It stops being, how do we win again? It becomes, why are we doing this at all? That is the question Formula One has accidentally forced into Max Verstappen's mind. And that is why this story is so dangerous. Because Verstappen is not a driver who sounds trapped by the sport. Some drivers need Formula One in a way that goes beyond racing. They need the cameras, the ceremony, the paddock, the status, the feeling of being part of the biggest racing show on earth. Verstappen has always seemed different. He loves racing, but he does not seem addicted to the theater around it. He has already won what most drivers spend their whole lives chasing. He has other interests, other projects, other ways to compete. So when he says he will not stay if things continue like this, it does not sound like empty pressure. It sounds possible. And possible is enough to terrify Formula One. Because if a driver without options threatens to leave, the paddock can dismiss it. But Verstappen has options because he has already built the legacy. He does not need one more season to prove he belongs among the greats. He does not need one more title to prove he changed the sport. That gives him freedom. And freedom is the most dangerous form of leverage. More money may not hold him. More fame may not move him. More records may not convince him. Even more championships may not matter if the car no longer gives back the feeling that made racing worth it in the first place. That is the word everything keeps returning to. Feeling. Formula One can measure power. It can measure downforce. It can measure drag, speed, tire wear, energy recovery, battery deployment, and lap time. But it cannot easily measure the moment when a driver sits inside the car and feels, this is right. That feeling is invisible. But it decides everything. For Verstappen, the car has to speak clearly. It has to tell him what the rear tires are doing. It has to respond when he turns in. It has to give him power in a way his instincts can trust. It has to be difficult, maybe even brutal, but it has to be honest. Because Verstappen does not need comfort. He needs certainty. And certainty is what allows him to attack. That is why the 2027 engine direction matters so much. The current concept pushes Formula One toward a 50-50 power split, half combustion, half electric. On paper, that sounds balanced. It sounds modern. It sounds like progress. But Verstappen is not racing on paper. He is racing inside a cockpit where every tiny delay, every change in power delivery, every extra layer of energy management can change how the car feels at the limit. And at the limit, feeling becomes survival. When the electric side becomes so important, the driver has to think differently. He has to manage how much energy he has, when to use it, when to save it, whether the boost will still be there later, whether the car will feel the same at the end of the lap as it did at the start. That may be technically impressive, but to Verstappen, it appears to feel less natural, less direct, less free. And that is the real conflict. Not whether Formula One should have technology. Of course it should. Formula One has always been built on technology. The sport has never been simple, and Verstappen has never asked it to be. The conflict is whether the technology begins to make the driver feel secondary. That is the line he is pushing against. Imagine sprinting as fast as you can, but your shoes keep changing grip while you run. Sometimes they push you forward. Sometimes they hold back. Sometimes they respond instantly. Sometimes they hesitate just enough to make your body doubt the next step. You are still running, but you are no longer free. That is what too much energy management can feel like to a driver who lives on instinct. And Verstappen's whole career has been built on instinct. He feels the limit earlier than most. He trusts it longer than most. He can hold a car at the edge lap after lap, until pressure becomes a weapon. He does not just produce speed. He repeats it. He turns precision into suffocation. But that requires a car he can trust. If the car becomes a system to manage instead of a machine to attack, the thing that makes Verstappen terrifying becomes harder to unleash. And that is why this is not just a Red Bull story. It is a Formula One identity crisis. Because fans do not fall in love with the sport because an energy chart looks perfect. They fall in love because a driver brakes later than seems possible. Because a car slides and somehow survives. Because a champion commits to a corner with so much trust that everyone watching holds their breath. That moment is human. And Verstappen is warning that Formula One may be putting too much distance between the driver and that moment. This is where the 60-40 solution becomes so important. 60% combustion, 40% electric. To casual fans, it sounds like a small change. Just a different number. Just another technical debate for engineers and rule makers. But inside this crisis, 60-40 is the escape route. It means more direct response from the combustion side. Less extreme dependence on electric management. More authority in the driver's hands. More feeling that the car is being driven, not constantly negotiated with. It does not mean going backward. It does not mean rejecting hybrid technology. It does not mean Formula One becomes old-fashioned. It means the future stays human enough for the driver to believe in it. And for Verstappen, that may be the condition. That is why his warning sounds so serious. He is not saying, make Red Bull dominant again. He is not saying, make the sport easy. He is saying, make the future worth staying for. And that is much harder for Formula One to answer. Because the International Automobile Federation cannot simply change everything without consequences. Some manufacturers may have already invested heavily in the original 50-50 direction. Some teams may believe they have found an advantage. Some rivals may quietly think that if Verstappen dislikes the future, that is Red Bull's problem, not theirs. Formula One is ruthless. If a rule hurts your rival, you do not always rush to save them. So the governing body is trapped between two dangers. Move towards 60-40, and some will say the sport bent under pressure from Verstappen. Refuse to move, and the sport may push Verstappen closer to quitting. Delay the decision, and every race weekend becomes part of a countdown. There is no clean option. Only consequences. And every consequence is huge. Because if Verstappen walks away, the story will not be small. It will not be remembered as one driver having a bad year. It will not be explained away as a normal retirement, because he would not be leaving as a faded driver with nothing left to give. He would be leaving while still fast enough to win. That changes the meaning completely. It becomes a statement. A statement that the future of Formula One no longer felt worth the cost. And that cost is enormous. The travel. The training. The media. The pressure. The criticism. The danger. The time away from family. The endless cycle of races, briefings, flights, and public judgment. A driver accepts all of it because the reward is special. The feeling of being faster than fear. The feeling of controlling chaos. The feeling of taking a car to the limit and knowing it will answer. But if that reward disappears, the cost becomes too heavy. That is what Verstappen's warning really means. Next year will be very long does not just mean the calendar is long. It means every race will feel longer if the car does not give him what he needs. Every flight will feel heavier. Every political delay will feel colder. Every bad session will feel like confirmation. Every lap in a car he does not enjoy will become another reason to ask whether Formula One is still the right place for him. And that should scare the sport. Because once a driver starts asking that question seriously, contracts are not enough. A contract can put him in the seat. It cannot make him believe. And belief is what Formula One now has to protect. Red Bull has to protect it by fixing the present. The International Automobile Federation has to protect it by fixing the future. And if either side fails, the threat grows. That is why this first block of the story matters so much. It shows that Verstappen's warning is not an emotional explosion with no meaning behind it. It is a line in the sand. A warning that the current direction may be taking Formula One away from the thing that makes a driver like him want to stay. Not away from speed. Away from connection. Away from trust. Away from the feeling that the driver still matters most when the car is on the edge. And if Formula One loses that, it loses something no engine regulation can replace. Then the warning stopped being just a Verstappen headline and became a political problem for the entire sport. Because once Max connected his future to the engine rules, Formula One could no longer hide the issue inside Red Bull's garage. This was not only about a difficult car anymore. This was about who gets to decide what Formula One becomes next. The International Automobile Federation. The manufacturers. The teams. The commercial side of the sport. Or the drivers, the people who actually sit inside the cars and feel every consequence of those decisions at full speed. That is where the tension becomes brutal. Because every side has a different reason to fight. The manufacturers want stability. They want rules they can trust. They want to know that the money, research, and development they have already committed will not be thrown into chaos because the target suddenly changes. The teams want advantage. If they believe the current direction helps them, they will not want to give it away. Formula One is not built on sympathy. If a rule hurts a rival, especially a rival like Red Bull, not everyone will rush to fix it. The International Automobile Federation wants control. It cannot look like one driver, even Max Verstappen, can force the rulebook to move just by threatening to leave. But the drivers want something much harder to write into regulations. They want the car to feel right. And that is the part that makes this debate so difficult. Because performance can be measured. Power can be measured. Battery output can be measured. Drag, weight, energy recovery, fuel flow, tire wear, all of that can be measured. But trust cannot be measured so easily. Joy cannot be measured. The feeling that the car belongs to the driver, that cannot be captured in one clean number. And yet, that feeling may decide whether Verstappen stays or walks away. That is why the 60-40 proposal has become so powerful. To the outside world, it sounds like a small technical correction. 60% combustion. 40% electric. Just numbers. But inside the paddock, those numbers now carry enormous weight. For Verstappen, 60-40 means a future that still has a chance. More direct response. Less extreme energy management. More authority in the driver's hands. A car that may feel more alive, more natural, more connected to instinct. For some manufacturers, 60-40 may mean disruption. A change to plans that were already built around the stronger electric direction. A shift that could hurt investments, concepts, and possible advantages. For Red Bull, it may mean survival. Not just technical survival. Emotional survival. Because if Verstappen believes the future is being corrected, Red Bull can keep fighting through the present. It can tell him the difficult season is temporary. It can tell him the car will improve. It can tell him the road ahead is still worth trusting. But if the future does not change, every current problem becomes heavier. Every unstable rear end becomes more than a setup issue. Every weak straight-line speed session becomes more than a speed problem. Every narrow operating window becomes more than a technical weakness. It becomes part of the same message. The car does not feel right now, and the sport may not feel right later. That is when frustration turns into something deeper. That is when a driver stops asking how to fix the weekend, and starts asking whether the whole journey is worth continuing. And this is the moment where Formula One has to be very careful. Because Verstappen's threat is not powerful only because he is fast. It is powerful because he might actually mean it. Some drivers threaten retirement because they want leverage. Others say it in moments of anger, knowing deep down that they cannot imagine life away from the paddock. Verstappen feels different. He has never seemed addicted to Formula One's theater. He loves racing, but not necessarily everything around it. The lights, the cameras, the endless talking, the political games, the pressure machine that never stops. He has other interests. Other projects. Other ways to compete. And most importantly, he has already achieved enough to leave without looking unfinished. That makes him dangerous. Because Formula One cannot simply offer the usual things and assume he will stay. More money may not solve this. More fame may not solve this. More records may not solve this. Even the promise of another championship may not solve this, if the car no longer gives him the feeling that made championships matter in the first place. That is why this is no longer a normal negotiation. A normal Formula One negotiation is about seats, contracts, salary, performance clauses, team direction, and who has the best car. This is different. This is about belief. Does Verstappen still believe the future of Formula One is worth his time, his mind, his risk, and his life? That is the question behind every word. And once that question becomes public, the entire paddock changes. Every statement from the International Automobile Federation becomes a signal. Every manufacturer objection becomes suspicious. Every Red Bull update becomes urgent. Every difficult Verstappen interview becomes evidence. Every quiet moment becomes louder than it should be. That is how a crisis grows. Not through one explosion. Through accumulation. A bad race. A difficult car. A painful result. A warning about the rules. A proposal that might fix things. A delay that makes everyone nervous. A rival who does not want the rules changed. A driver who says next year will be very long if nothing moves. And suddenly, the sport is no longer only talking about who wins on Sunday. It is talking about whether its defining driver will still be there at all. That uncertainty is toxic for Red Bull. Because Red Bull has built its modern identity around Verstappen. He is not just the driver in the car. He is the standard the team measures itself against. His feedback is sharp. His expectations are brutal. His ability to extract results can make a flawed weekend look better than it really was. When Red Bull gives him a great car, he turns it into domination. When Red Bull gives him a difficult car, he can still drag it towards something respectable. But there is a limit. A driver can carry performance problems for a while.